Have you ever felt lost, as if a single mistake, a single failure could define your entire life? We often look at our own struggles and believe they are unique, a heavy weight that only we must carry. But what if I told you that the answers to our deepest questions, the solutions to our greatest fears, are not hidden in the future, but are written in the pages of the past? Welcome to English Through Great Stories. Today we journey back in time, not to memorize dates or battles, but to uncover the greatest life lessons from history. Because history is more than just a record of events. It is a library of human experience, a collection of stories filled with wisdom, courage, and resilience. It offers us a map, drawn by those who walked these paths before us, showing us how to navigate the challenges of our own lives. Join us as we listen to the echoes of the past and discover the timeless truths that can shape our future. Chapter 1. The Strength Forged in Failure. Our first story begins with a man who knew failure intimately. Imagine a young man growing up in poverty with less than a year of formal schooling. He starts a business with a friend, but the business fails, leaving him with a large debt that takes him years to repay. He falls in love, but the woman he wishes to marry dies tragically. He enters politics full of hope, but loses his first election. He runs for office again and wins, but then loses 2 consecutive races for the United States Senate. After one of these defeats, he writes to a friend, "I am now the most miserable man living. If what I feel were equally distributed to the whole human family, there would not be one cheerful face on the earth." This man's name was Abraham Lincoln. To many, his life looked like a long series of disappointments. He was called awkward, uneducated, and unfit for leadership. Each loss, each setback, could have been a reason to quit. He could have accepted that his dream of making a difference was impossible. He could have returned to a quiet life, his name forgotten by history. But he did not. What set Lincoln apart was not an absence of failure, but his response to it. With every defeat, he learned. When he lost in debate, he studied his opponent's arguments and made his own stronger. When he faced personal sorrow, he developed a deep empathy for the suffering of others. His struggles did not break him, they built him. They carved into his character a profound sense of humility, determination, and a wisdom that could only be earned through hardship. In 1860, against all odds, this man who had failed so many times was elected the 16th President of the United States. He would go on to lead his country through its darkest hour, the Civil War, and end slavery, changing the course of history forever. This empathy, forged in the crucible of his own pain, became his most powerful political tool. When the nation was tearing itself apart, he did not speak only of victory or punishment, but of healing and unity. His famous words, "with malice toward none, with charity for all," were not a clever political phrase. They were the genuine expression of a man who understood suffering and sought to end it. He saw the humanity in every citizen, from the soldier on the battlefield to the slave yearning for freedom. This ability to connect with the heart of the nation, an ability born from his own series of failures, was the key to his leadership. It allowed him to guide the country through its most painful chapter and to imagine a future where it could be whole again. The life of Abraham Lincoln teaches us a powerful lesson. Our modern world often celebrates success and hides failure. We see the final victory, but not the years of struggle that came before it. Lincoln's story reminds us that the path to greatness is almost always paved with setbacks. Failure is not a sign that you should stop. It is a sign that you are trying, that you are learning, that you are growing. True failure isn't falling down. It is refusing to get back up. Our mistakes do not have to be the end of our story. They can be the beginning of our strength. Chapter 2. The Unconquerable Mind. Let us now travel further back, to the heart of the mighty Roman Empire. It was a world of magnificent architecture and military power, but also a world of chaos. Political conspiracies were common, plagues swept through cities, and distant wars demanded a constant price in blood. Life for everyone, from the slave to the emperor, was uncertain and often short. In a world of such turmoil, how could anyone find peace? The answer comes from one of Rome's greatest emperors, Marcus Aurelius. He was not a man who sought power. He was a scholar, a thinker, a philosopher. Yet he was called to lead the empire during one of its most difficult periods. He faced constant war on the borders, political betrayal in his own court, and a devastating plague that killed millions of his people. He also suffered personal tragedies, including the loss of many of his children. Every day, he woke up to a world filled with reasons for anger, fear, and despair. But Marcus Aurelius had a secret weapon. It was not a sword or shield, but a philosophy, Stoicism. Late at night in his tent on the cold frontiers of the empire, he would write in a personal journal. This journal, which we now know as Meditations, was never meant to be published. It was a series of personal reminders, a guide for himself on how to live a good life. The core lesson of his philosophy is simple, yet incredibly powerful. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This is the heart of Stoicism. We cannot control the world around us. We cannot control what other people do, whether we get sick or whether misfortune strikes. These things are external, but we can always control our response. We can choose how we interpret these events. When a general betrayed him, he chose forgiveness instead of rage. When the plague ravaged his city, he chose duty and order instead of panic. He saw every obstacle not as a barrier, but as an opportunity to practice virtue, patience, courage, wisdom, and justice. The obstacle, he believed, becomes the way. Chapter 3. The Light of Perseverance. Our next lesson comes not from the battlefield or the throne, but from a place of quiet, intense discovery, a cold, leaky shed in Paris. It was here, at the end of the 19th century, that a young Polish immigrant named Maria Sklodowska, whom the world would come to know as Marie Curie, began a journey that would change science forever. Driven by an unstoppable curiosity, she sought to understand a mysterious energy coming from a mineral called pitchblende. The scientific world was skeptical. What she was looking for, they believed, did not exist. She had little money, an unheated laboratory, and a society that did not believe a woman belonged in science. For 4 years, she and her husband Pierre performed exhausting physical labor, stirring huge vats of the black, sticky substance with a heavy iron rod, slowly, painstakingly refining the material. It was back-breaking, thankless work. In the cold of winter, their shed was freezing. In the summer, it was suffocatingly hot. But at night, they would sometimes return to their workshop, and in the darkness, they would see it. Their refined samples were glowing with a faint, beautiful blue-green light. It was the unseen made visible. This light was a reward for their relentless belief in the power of a question. Marie Curie's life shows us that some of the world's most powerful forces are invisible. Not just radioactivity, but also curiosity, determination, and the human spirit's refusal to accept the limits set by others. Her story is a testament to the idea that great discoveries are not made in a single flash of genius, but through years of patient, often frustrating work. Think of the small frustrations of modern life: a delayed train, a critical comment online, a project that doesn't go as planned. We often react with immediate anger or anxiety, giving these external events power over our peace of mind. Marcus Aurelius would offer a different path. He would remind us to ask, is this what I control? The comment is just words. Our reaction to them is our own. The delay is a fact. Our impatience is a choice. He wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." By consciously choosing to focus on what is within our control, our patience, our understanding, our resilience, we can build an inner fortress that no external chaos can breach. This is not about being passive, It is about being intelligently active, directing our energy to our own character instead of wasting it on things we cannot change. This lesson from ancient Rome is perhaps more relevant today than ever before. We live in a world of constant information, where we are bombarded with news of events far beyond our control. It is easy to feel anxious, angry, or helpless, but the Stoics remind us that our true power lies within. While we cannot command the winds, we can adjust our sails. Our perspective is our ultimate freedom. The greatest battles are not fought on distant fields, but within the quiet chambers of our own minds. By learning to master our thoughts, we can find peace even in the middle of a storm. Chapter 4. The Unbreakable Voice. Our next lesson comes not from a great emperor or president, but from a group of ordinary women who achieved something extraordinary. Let's travel to the early 20th century, to a world where, in most countries, half of the population was silenced. Women had few legal rights. They could not own property in the same way as men, had limited access to education, and most importantly, they could not vote. Their voices, opinions, and dreams were considered secondary, unimportant in the world of politics and power. For decades, women had argued peacefully for the right to vote. They wrote letters, signed petitions, and held meetings, but they were ignored. The world refused to listen. So a group of British women, known as the suffragettes, decided it was time for a new approach. Their motto was deeds, not words. Led by figures like Emmeline Pankhurst, they were determined to make their voices heard, no matter the cost. Their fight was incredibly difficult. They were ridiculed in newspapers, insulted on the streets, and abandoned by their families. When they protested, they were arrested and sent to prison. In prison, they were treated like common criminals. To protest their treatment, many went on hunger strike, refusing to eat. The authorities responded with a brutal procedure of force-feeding. They endured suffering that is difficult for us to imagine today. So what gave them the strength to continue against such powerful opposition? Why did they willingly face violence, prison, and public shame? The answer lies in the power of conviction. They were not fighting for themselves alone. They were fighting for their daughters, their granddaughters, and for generations of women they would never meet. They believed with all their hearts in the fundamental justice of their cause, that a woman's voice was equal to a man. This deep belief gave them a courage that was almost unbreakable. It transformed ordinary women, mothers, daughters, factory workers, and teachers into fearless activists. Their fight was long and painful. Some did not live to see their victory, but eventually their persistence broke down the walls of prejudice. In 1918, the first women in Britain won the right to vote, an achievement that sent ripples across the world. This conviction was a fire that burned away fear. It gave them the clarity to organize with strategic brilliance. They chained themselves to railings, disrupted political speeches, and published their own newspapers to counter the propaganda against them. They understood that they had to create a crisis that could not be ignored. It was a radical idea that when the system is deaf to justice, one must be loud enough to break the silence. Their fight was also a personal one, filled with small, forgotten acts of bravery. Women like Emily Davison, who died after stepping in front of the king's horse at a derby, became martyrs for the cause. their ultimate sacrifice a symbol of their unwavering belief that a better world was not only possible, but necessary. The story of the suffragettes teaches us that a purpose greater than yourself can give you strength you never knew you possessed. When we face challenges in our own lives, it is easy to feel small and powerless. But when we connect our personal struggles to a larger principle, to a cause we believe in, we find a new source of energy. Whether it's fighting for justice, creating art, building a community, or raising a family with love, having a strong conviction gives our life meaning. It shows us that one person united with others in a common cause can indeed change the world. Chapter 5. The Long Walk to Forgiveness. Let us now travel to the 20th century, to a nation torn apart by division and injustice, South Africa under apartheid. For decades, a brutal system of racial segregation defined every aspect of life. In the heart of the struggle against this system was a young lawyer named Nelson Mandela. For his activism, he was sentenced to life in prison. He would spend 27 years locked away, most of them on the harsh Robben Island. It was a place designed to break the human spirit. He performed hard labor in a lime quarry, the bright glare of which permanently damaged his eyesight. He was allowed one visitor a year, one letter every 6 months. It would have been easy for him to let his heart fill with hatred for his captors. Yet in that place of extreme hardship, he undertook his most difficult work. He began to free himself. Not from the prison of stone and bars, but from the prison of bitterness. He learned the language of his oppressors, Afrikaans, so he could understand them. He studied their history. He prepared not for revenge, but for reconciliation. When he was finally released in 1990, the world held its breath, expecting a call for vengeance. Instead, he called for peace. As president, he did something remarkable. He invited his former jailer to his inauguration as a VIP guest. He famously attended the 1995 Rugby World Cup, a sport beloved by the white minority who had imprisoned him. He walked onto the field wearing the jersey of the South African team, the Springboks, a symbol he had once hated. In that single gesture, he showed a nation and the world that forgiveness was not a weakness, but the ultimate strength. Mandela's story shows us that forgiveness is a choice. It is not about forgetting the past, but about choosing not to let the past control the future. Chapter 6. The Wealth of a Simple Life. For our final lesson, we travel to the sun-drenched gardens of ancient Greece. Think about our modern world for a moment. We are constantly connected, constantly busy. Our phones show us images of perfect lives, telling us we need more, a better job, a bigger house, the latest technology. We chase after a version of happiness that is always just out of reach. But what if the secret to a happy life is not about getting more, but about wanting less? This was the central teaching of a philosopher named Epicurus. Today, his name is often connected with luxury and expensive pleasure, but this is a complete misunderstanding of his philosophy. Epicurus lived a very simple life. He taught his followers in a place called the Garden, a quiet space away from the noise of the city of Athens. He believed that the greatest source of human anxiety was the constant desire for things we do not have. We believe that a new car or a promotion will finally make us happy, but when we get it, the feeling quickly fades and we start wanting something else. Epicurus called this the hedonic treadmill. His solution was radical. He argued that the highest pleasure is actually the absence of pain and fear. It is a state of tranquility, of inner peace. And this, he said, does not require wealth or fame. Instead, he identified three simple things as the keys to a happy life. First, friendship. He lived with his friends in the garden, sharing simple meals and conversation. He believed that having good friends was the most important ingredient for happiness. Second, freedom. This meant being self-sufficient, not depending on a difficult job or a boss you dislike. And third, a thoughtful life, taking time to think about our worries, to understand our fears, and to appreciate the world around us. Consider the world of social media, where happiness is often performed for an audience. We scroll through images of perfect holidays, perfect meals, and perfect families, and this constant comparison can create a deep sense of inadequacy. Epicurus would see this as a form of self-inflicted torture. He would argue that we are chasing shadows, seeking validation from others, instead of cultivating it within ourselves. The true joy of a beautiful sunset is not in the number of likes a photo of it receives, but in the simple, quiet act of watching it. The pleasure of a good conversation is not in broadcasting it to the world, but in the genuine connection between friends. By rediscovering these simple, private joys, we reclaim our happiness from the judgment of others and find it in the reality of our own life. For Epicurus, a piece of cheese and a cup of water with a good friend was a feast. He famously said, "Do not spoil what you have by desiring what you have not. Remember that what you now have was once among the things you only hoped for." This is a profound lesson on gratitude. The wisdom of Epicurus teaches us that happiness is not found in accumulation, but in appreciation. True wealth is not measured by what you own, but by what you enjoy. By focusing on meaningful relationships, inner peace, and gratitude for the simple things, we can step off the treadmill of endless desire and find a more stable and profound joy. A final reflection: the echoes of time. We have walked with Lincoln through his failures and seen how they forged his greatness. We have stood with Marcus Aurelius on the edge of the empire and learned to find strength within our own minds. We have peered into the glowing workshop of Marie Curie and seen the power of relentless curiosity. We have heard the unbreakable voices of the suffragettes and felt the power of conviction. We have felt the immense grace of Nelson Mandela and understood that forgiveness is the ultimate freedom. And we have sat in Epicurus's garden, discovering that the greatest joys are often the simplest. These stories, separated by thousands of years and thousands of miles, speak to us with a single unified voice. They remind us that the human experience is universal. The challenges we face today, failure, chaos, injustice, and the search for happiness, are the same challenges that our ancestors faced. History is not a subject in a textbook. It is a conversation with humanity. It is the story of ordinary people who, in their own time, faced extraordinary moments and chose courage over fear, resilience over despair, and wisdom over ignorance. Their lives are a gift to us. Their struggles, their hopes, and their triumphs echo through time, offering us guidance and inspiration. Perhaps the greatest lesson of all is this: we are not alone in our journey. A map has been drawn for us by all those who came before. It is up to us to read it, to learn from it, and then, with the time we are given, to add our own chapter to this incredible, ongoing story of what it means to be human.